A pleasant morning, all. I welcome you all for the seventh day National Level FDP on Reading Back to Basics, jointly organized by ELTAI and Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College, Coimbatore. Today we have 4 sessions, and now we are about to start our first session of the day. The session is on rereading and rethinking reading comprehension questions, to be handled by Dr. V.K. Karthika. Before we start the session, I would like to introduce our resource person. Dr. V.K. Karthika is Assistant Professor of English at NIT Tiruchirappalli. She earned her Master's in TESOL studies from the University of Leeds, England, after a Master's in English from Pondicherry University. She was an ESOL instructor and assessor for ESOL examinations in England. She has her doctorate from EFL University, Hyderabad. She currently researches in the field of aviation English and develops materials for training in aeronautical communication. Ma'am, I welcome you for this session. The session is yours. Please, ma'am, please proceed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, congratulations to all the organizers, and I'm really happy to be with you today. I've been attending a few sessions actually. I've been stepping in and then listening to many lectures, and it's a wonderfully organized program. Congratulations to all the organizers once again. May I have my slides actually? Yeah, I got it. Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am, you could start.
Okay.
I'm presenting it.
Yeah, I got it on my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. So I titled the session as Rereading and Rethinking Reading Comprehension Questions because of a reason actually. I'll tell you something. Long back when I started my career as a teacher, there was a situation when we teachers had to set a question paper for our mid-semester examinations. And then the questions were supposed to be out of 40 marks, and there were 35 marks of questions already there based on the syllabus that was done in the classroom, and 5 marks shortage. So we had a discussion, and the discussion was going on. Then suddenly one of the colleagues, she said, why are you just breaking your head over it? You can just take one passage and ask a few questions, maybe 1 mark each. You can give 5 questions, and that will sort the issue. Why to go on and on about this? So this made me think actually, and I'm not saying that thinking actually made me title the session like this, but ever since then I've been thinking about how was I taught reading comprehension in my class, and was I tested for the things that I was taught, or was it just for the sake of an examination to contribute 5 marks or 10 marks that I was getting reading passages to read? So this was something about teaching comprehension and testing comprehension and the binary between them that I started thinking about long back then. Then eventually when I became more fluent in my teaching, I started using questions or testing as a tool for teaching and tool for learning in the class. So today I would like all of us to go back to the questions that we set, either for a classroom transaction purpose or even for the test assessment purpose, and then reread those questions and rethink about them, and just rethink the kind of reading comprehension questions that we set. So this is my larger agenda, and I have already told you a story. I will try not to say any more stories because we have a limitation of time. I would like you to just go through this passage. This is a quick read and a very plain kind of passage. Please take 1 minute to read it, and I would appreciate if you formulate a few questions, at least one question based on this, and I would like to see it in the chat box. So a quick read. Then I'll tell you my plans for today. Just a quick question. That's what I want. Don't think a lot. Just based on this, if you can put a few questions, I'll be really happy. I can't see questions. I can see people wishing good morning. Uh, Done. Okay, reading is done. Now, can you please put in the question? And if there is anybody who has a bit of visual impairment, I'll just read it out for them. This will become a listening for them, but still. Every day after work, Paul took his muddy boots off on the steps of the front porch. Alice would have a fit if the boots made it so far as the welcome mat. He then took off his dusty overalls and threw them into a plastic garbage bag. Alice left a new garbage bag tied to the porch railing for him every morning. On his way in the house, he dropped the garbage bag off at the washing machine and went straight up the stairs to the shower as he was instructed. He would eat dinner with her after he was in quotes presentable, as Alice has often said. What kind of a person is Alice? When did Paul take off his muddy boots? How would you describe Paul and Alice? What did Paul do every day? Why is Alice not working? Right? Why would Alice have a fit? Where did Paul take off his boots? Excellent. Thank you very much. What do you make of Alice's overall attitude towards hygiene? Very good. What did Alice leave for him every morning? Okay. Great. Thank you very much for all those questions. Lovely ones indeed. We'll revisit them. Now let me proceed. So this is the plan for today. This is the overview of my session. I'll quickly discuss how questioning can be a strategy in our classrooms. So basically, I study my classroom. So these are all things that I have learned from my classrooms and then try to give a background or maybe try to just back it up with theories to put it in the right words. So I'll discuss what is Socratic questioning or Socratic seminar. That is just the background, okay? The basic ground on which I'm going to just tell you how things worked in my classroom and how things didn't work. And then a quick visit on Bloom's taxonomy, not the revised one, but the old one. And then connecting it with reading comprehension, a few sets of questions. I know that all of you know that, but still it's important to just go back and revisit that for so many reasons. Now, then there is something called QAR strategy, which I'll be discussing, and questioning the author and elaborative interrogation will be discussed. And finally, Paris is not that Paris in France, but it's a speaking task or it's a speaking activity. And here I know that there are other speakers who will be looking at speaking in relation with other skills, so I won't go deep into it, but I'll just establish a case for how reading can be in relation with speaking, or speaking becomes a modality. So modality, I understand that many of you know what is a modality, but then let me just quickly explain what I mean by that. So you give a reading passage to your students and then they are expected to write or tick or fill, match the following, whatever. So their writing becomes the modality. So what you are testing, the skill in focus or the skill being tested is reading. But when you are writing the answers, then writing becomes the modality to let the teacher know that this is what we comprehend. All right. So writing becomes the modality. Here I'll be talking about how this Paris framework could be used to make speaking as a modality and how that can actually increase their or increase chances of being proficient in their speaking, writing, reading, and listening, how the other skills can actually be influenced positively. So this is the plan. Let me just proceed further. So Socratic questioning, we know who is Socrates and we know how great a teacher he was and how he dealt with the questions that were asked by his students. So here in our classroom context, when we talk about Socratic seminar, we are talking about teacher not as a reservoir of knowledge or a purveyor of knowledge who fills the empty vessels. So we can't just assume that everybody is an empty vessel and the teacher feeds in things. and the teacher helps the students to think for themselves and value their own questions. So it's not the teacher who is always asking the questions. There could be triggering questions so that the students can actually ask questions to the teacher. Okay, and trains learners thinking skills and engages them in a rigorous kind of intellectual exercise. So this also the teacher can do through questioning. But the teacher is not the only one who is asking the question. The teacher asks the questions to get more questions rather than responses. An observer and a facilitator. We've known this word facilitator for such a long time. So documenting the learner's successes and failures and thinking about ways to improve. So this is actually contributing to our CPD. How do we actually professionally develop ourselves? And this is one step ahead. We have materials in classroom which works, which doesn't work, and which actually inculcates a lot of learning and which doesn't actually do anything to the learners. So in that case, anything for the learners, then in that case we have to analyze it. We have to just go back on our teaching strategy or what works best in the classroom and then make modifications if necessary. So we have to document the learner's success and failures and think, is there a problem with the method, or is it a problem with the learner's strategy? Then to promote critical thinking and critical reading skills. So these are the roles of Socratic questioning in a classroom context. And please note that this is not only for reading comprehension, not for English language teaching, but for any kind of subjects, any kind of learning. Socratic questioning is a very important thing. You think about your own personal problems. Even there, the Socratic questions can help you. I'll tell you how. Let me just go to the next slide. Okay, so there are 6 different types of Socratic questions. You can just identify them easily. We use that without knowing that, oh, this belongs to this particular category, which is quite okay. But when you know that there are a set of questions that you can use, just metacognitively think about your classroom. How many of these questions are asked on an everyday basis to your students? Or how many of these questions do you get back from the students? Getting it back from the students is very important. We attend a lot of faculty development programs, a lot of webinars, conferences, and even PhD Viva. But have you heard of anybody asking any pertinent questions? It's very difficult to get such creamy questions, the questions that actually provoke thoughts. And how easily students can ask that question? They cannot ask it easily. Even for us, setting a question paper is very difficult because you have to go through a lot of thinking, multi layers of thinking to actually generate a good question. We'll come back to that Alice Paul passage later after I discuss a few things, and then we will discuss it further. So now questions for clarification and checking assumptions, finding out reasons and evidence, viewpoints and perspective checking questions, implications and consequences analysis questions, and finally, this is my favorite actually, questions about question. It's very difficult to ask questions about questions. And how frequently do we get such kind of questions? We need to really think about it. I have had one student who came to the faculty cabins and then asked, why were we given this question at all? How significant is it for an engineering student like me? There was a question about the question. I'm not just talking about that type of a question, but it includes that one as well. But if you look at it, what was the point of this question? Why do you ask this question? What does this mean? And how does this apply to everyday life? I remember asking some of my engineering students, what's the answer for a plus b the whole square? And then they go a square plus b square plus 2ab. Then I said, what is the use of it? They have no idea about it. Okay, and there was one big hoarding kept outside the university. And I asked them, can you see so many holes on it? Yes, we could see that. And then why do you think that is there on that hoarding? And they had different answers to the thing. And they never had that question in their mind, though they are physics students or, science and technology students. So sometimes the teacher can actually trigger their thinking, trigger their critical thinking by asking questions. And when they ask you a question, you can answer it by asking a question back. So I have talked so much about questioning, a lot of things about questioning. But if you look at these questions, you will understand that these are very important in anybody's learning. As I told you earlier, even if we are thinking about a personalized kind of context, these questions are very pertinent. So you have an issue, a personal issue. To troubleshoot that, you need to keep on asking questions. Okay. So in that context, if you place it in a classroom, and when it comes to English language learning, how much can we do if we know the right type of questions to trigger the students thinking? Please think about it. I will move on to the next slide, which is a quick visit on Bloom's taxonomy and how do I relate it to critical reading. So I didn't take the other one, the revised one, because I don't have time to go to the create level questions as of now, because it's I could see some of the questions coming up, but still, because of the time limitation, I don't want to go into the create level one. So I just took some basic bits from the first Bloom's taxonomy. So there are literal and inferential and evaluation level questions. So it's from lower level to the higher level. And knowledge and comprehension based questions are there. If you look at them, it will just go for identifying and recalling information from the text that they are given. Now you place it in the context of reading. Okay, who, what, when, where, how. Now we've got describe, so many things we've got in the chat box as a response to the first passage that I've given you. And then comprehension questions, retell this particular passage in your own words, and what is the main idea of this particular passage. So you get things like this. And then when you go for the higher order one, inferential level one, you have application, analysis, and synthesis there. And application level, you use facts, rules, principles, and the like. There you can have questions like, how is this an example of this? How is this related to that? Why is this significant? And analysis, when you analyze it, what are the parts or features of this? Classify this according to this. How does this compare or contrast with something else? These type of questions. And how often do we give it in our English reading tasks? Do we use all these levels? We are supposed to use, this is the era of outcome based education. National education policy is stressing on the importance of incorporating higher level, higher order thinking skills. So in that case, are we actually, when we put questions or when we set question papers, are we actually looking at the kind of levels that we have to have in our mind? Do we think about it really? Do we think about various challenging ways in which we can actually pose it a question so that it can provoke their thinking and then generate something really genuine and really valid? Now, synthesis, combinations of ideas from a new whole. What would you predict? How would you create or create something new? This will come into the create bit as well. What might happen if you combine this with that? Then evaluation bit. Do you agree to this? What do you think about this? What is the most important something? How would you prioritize this? If you think through it, it's really, I actually encourage my research scholars to go through these levels of questioning when they are sitting down to write a proposal, or when they are writing an abstract, or when they work on some journal articles. I ask them to go through these different levels of questions before they actually pen down their ideas. It's really important that we read something in the light of all these things. Now, I have set the ground clear. Now, let me just quickly take you to the next slide. So question answer relationship, we are just moving on. So far what I did was actually trying to establish a case for how important questioning is in reading comprehension, and how could we use assessment for learning. So assessment comes when there are questions, okay, simply in that simple terms. So through questioning, how can we promote learning? So I have made my grounds clear here. Now let's look at this strategy called QAR, question answer relationship. So this is a questioning strategy actually, which emphasizes that a relationship exists between a question, the text, and the background of the reader. We know that, okay? So it's termed as QAR, and students are taught to use 4 different types, okay? I will tell you that in another 2 minutes time. So there is this question answer relationship to find information they need to answer the question. And then teacher introduces QAR and explains its 4 types. That is how it happens in the classroom. This is how I worked it in my classroom, and it was really effective. And don't think that this works only at the tertiary level or higher levels with the students, but even for the lower level children, like primary classes onwards, we can practice this. Only thing is that the teacher has to make pedagogical changes or make changes to the method that he or she is using in the class. Okay, so students are, the teacher introduces the QAR and its different types. Okay, very simple. I'll tell you that. Models the QAR process by using a short reading passage. Let's think about our Paul and Alice. Okay, so you read the text and then just ask a few questions, just trigger a few questions. Identify which QAR are evidenced through the questions given. So you ask a question, describe Alice. This is something that I could see there. So once I give you the QAR types, then you can think about this question. Describe Alice. Where do I get this information? So they relate it. And it's very important. This, you might think that this is actually a lot of strategy instruction. You're not instructing the strategy there. It depends on the teacher actually, how creatively you can inculcate this in the students. It totally depends on the teacher. And it's very good that if the students know that, okay, when I answer this question, this is how I have to go. And you know what? It really helps in preparing IELTS, preparing for IELTS examination. I was recently helping somebody with the reading part of IELTS. And he was saying that initially that reading is easy. I said reading is not easy. Reading is one of the IELTS component, which is really, one of the IELTS components which is really tough to score. Because you never know what is the one example. You never know what's the difference between false and not given. You will always have a confusion there. So it's very important that the person goes and reads carefully, but then where is the time for all that? So within the time bound kind of limitations, within the time limitations, you have to sort out all these comprehension bits. Therefore, QAR, knowing about it is a little helpful in sorting out things, even at the level of these IELTS TOEFL examinations. And it works very well in the classroom. Practice identifying the QAR with the class. It's just like a matter, depending on the level of the students, it's just a matter of 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Sometimes it can take more than that. Independent practice, then give a short passage like the one that I gave you to the students and ask them to generate questions. Have we ever taught our students to generate questions? This is something that I would really like you to think about. And I remember one of the central institutes apparently has set up a question paper which I'm sure that you have all got the WhatsApp screenshots or whatever of that. So they have asked a question. The question was this: you set a question paper based on whatever you have learned over the semester and answer that question. Answer those questions. Fantastic. There is no doubt in that. It's an amazing kind of exercise. But I was thinking, have we ever taught the students to set the questions? Ever have we taught them? Who taught them to ask the questions? And how are we going to, evaluate that? It sounds a fantastic idea, over a semester, the teachers taught and the students have the liberty to set the questions and then answer it themselves. It can be all factual questions. All factual questions it could be. Then how is the evaluation possible? How do the higher order thinking skills get counted there? I was thinking about it. So it's important to let the students know that there is a question answer relationship and there are different levels of thinking that is involved in setting questions and then answering them. Learners continue to use QAR throughout the year across the curriculum. That is where I said this questioning ability is not language specific or subject specific. It's a life skill. Okay. Now, what are some good strategies to develop pre-readers comprehension skills? Yeah, we'll come back to that. Now, this is the question answer relationship that I was telling you. There are two types. The first one being in the book, and the second one in my head. Okay, so in the book we'll have two other subdivisions. Write there and think and search. Very simple. So in the book means you have the answer right there in the book in one place. If it is there in one place, the words from the question and words that answer the questions are often right there in the same sentence. So you think about our own classrooms, old classrooms, Tryst with Destiny, or anything, a story about Indian independence, and then when did India win independence? And then you will be looking for all the keywords: when, India, independence. Then you go back to the text and see whether you can find the same keywords. And for in the book, right there kind of QAR, the answer will be right there with almost or mostly similar kind of keywords. So India won independence in 1947. So you know the answer, 1947. So what you do as a strategy is rereading, first identifying the keywords, then rereading. And when you reread, you scan for the information. So the last column there is devoted to the strategies that are involved in finding answers in the book, right there type of questions. Okay. Now, those people who have set the questions for the passage that I have shown you, can you think about whether your question was in the book, right there type, or in the book, think and search type of question? Just have one of your compartments working on that. The second type is in the book, think and search. The answer is in several places. Okay, so scanning is not the strategy. We'll skim for the information. We'll identify the keywords and then, assemble all the parts. For example, if there is something about the Nobel Prize for Literature, the Nobel Prize history, okay, and it's not category wise, it's just a little mixed up kind of a long passage. So what you want to find out is from this year to this year, who all won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And in that case, you have this keyword Nobel Prize for Literature from this year to this year, and it will be scattered in different parts. So you will go through it, you will skim through it, and whenever you identify the literature bit, you will pick information and synthesize it, combine it, assemble it. That's how you come up with the answer. So such questions are called think and search kind of questions. Okay. Now, the second major type is called in my head. So the answer is not there in the text. Okay, so it's a dealing between author and me, and sometimes on my own. Okay, higher level kind of questions. So the first one, author and you, think about how what you know and how what's in the text fit together. So you already know something, and then how are you going to connect what you know with what is already there in the text? And you reread. Think about what you already know and what the text says. That is another way of putting the first one in. And then predict an answer. Prediction is very important, a strategy in reading. Then the last one, which is on my own. The answer is not in the text. Then think about what you already know and think about what you have read before. Okay, so your global knowledge, you have taught, you have read widely in the area of Second World War, and then you have something like explain the Trinity, and then you are not going to think about the Holy Trinity. You are going to think about it in the perspective of Second World War or in the World War context. Okay, so what is Trinity? You will just think about it. You will use all your background knowledge about it, and then you will generate some kind of an idea. So everything is relational here, and you have to put a lot of effort on trusting yourself. And whatever schema is activated or whatever kind of prior background knowledge you have, you need to depend on that and then analyze the text and make connections. So this is how it is. I hope it's clear. And you can clearly see that the author and you and on my own are the top levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So these are higher order kind of questions when it comes. So when the students know that I am being asked for a question like this, and or it gets automatized through practice. So every day a small passage, and it gets really automatized, and they don't need to be explicitly told that, okay, you are now using a right there answer, or you are using a on my own kind of answer. They'll be able to process it themselves, and it's going a lot of meta on their own, and it actually promotes a lot of willingness to learn kind of thing. Once they know about it, then they are interested in that. They have a task at hand, they'll slowly process. Only thing is that the teacher has to fine tune the entire learning bit. Just be there to help them and facilitate it. Ask the right questions to promote. So please have this in your mind. This is an excellent strategy that worked in my classes. It worked even in my MA classes. I teach MA English students, and it really worked well with them. It works well with BTech students, and it works with my 6-year-old girl. When one of my great teachers when she was born, gifted a set of books which I use now, because she's 6. And then I opened the pages, and she doesn't read, so I just opened the books and I flipped through the pages, and she asked me to tell her the story. So I said, just tell me what it could be. So this is a princess, maybe not a princess. She's looking like a princess, but in the beginning she's not a princess. Her dress is torn, and then why is this lady like this, and the other 2 girls are looking really bad. So now you know what story is that. So she just predicts a lot of things. So in a way, I'm using this QAR thing. I'm just asking her questions, and then she is finding it out from different locations through pictures. Okay, I'm talking about pictures here. I'm not talking about the verbal bit here when I talk about my girl, right? But in the classes, when I give them small passages, the passage that I gave you, I have given to both my MA students and to my BTech students, and it worked excellently well. They don't know how to formulate questions, and later I could see that through different such short passages, which apparently looks very simple, they were able to develop their inferential comprehension pretty much, and they were able to come up with such good questions which always go up from analysis to creation. It was a brilliant kind of activity, and it helps them to be really get involved in their own learning. Who doesn't like to ask questions? Everybody likes to ask questions. So we need to tap that facility. Now, can you just think about this passage again and give me a few in my head questions? I will wait. I look at the chat box. You take some time and write in my head questions. If you want the previous slide, I can give you that. So they have to predict. When you ask the question, it should be prediction-based questions. The answer should not be right there. So in my head question and on my own, or I will show you the previous slide. And then I'll read out this one. The passage I'll just read out once again. Every day after work, Paul took his muddy boots off on the steps of the front porch. Alice would have a fit if the boots made it so far as the welcome mat. He then took off his dusty overalls and threw them into a plastic garbage bag. Alice left a new garbage bag tied to the porch railing for him every morning. On his way in the house, he dropped the garbage bag off at the washing machine and went straight up the stairs to the shower as he was instructed. He would eat dinner with her after he was presentable in quotes, as Alice had often said. So now let me see your responses. Where was Paul working? How far the workplace is from? Aha, really? What is the relation between Alice and Paul? Very good. Why did Paul take off his shoes? Why did Paul take off his shoes? Okay. Is Alice a control freak? Really? What is Alice's notion of being presentable? Yes. Where was Paul working? Have you ever wanted yourself be presentable before someone or for some occasions? Share your experience. This is even higher level kind of question. Yes, creation bit. Would you say that Alice is someone who suffers from OCD? Yes. What was Paul's job? Good one. What was Paul's job? Why were his boots muddy? What could be the relationship? Right. I think that's it. Why okay, what was his job? What is the nature of Paul's work? Well phrased one. What type of a person is Alice? Is that all? What do you mean by presentable? What are the works assigned by Alice to her husband? Right. Okay. Let me just come back here. Okay. No, the previous slide itself. So if you think about it, look at the question, what is Paul's job? How do you respond to that question? Can I have some responses in the chat box? What could be Paul's job? So that's author and you kind of a question pretty much, because there are several clues for that. We don't have a definite kind of answer, but still the author has given you a lot of clues there. Very obvious ones: dusty overalls, muddy boots. So passage. Okay. Gardener, farmer, servant. Really? Okay. Now let me ask you one question on my own kind of question. There is no correct answer to it. Peasant, mason, mechanic. Did Paul have the freedom to be at his home? Right. So let me ask you one in my head question on my own kind of question. Okay, Moore, quarry worker. Okay, where do you think this story happening, or where do you think what is the setting, a setup for the story or setting of the story? Where do you think the story happens? It's more than direct and indirect questions. The usual thick and thin questions. It's more than that. It's more inferential. No, the actual local. Can you be more specific? It's not about village or town or urban or semi-urban. It's about the country. Can you tell me which country this happens? Okay, in a marshy land, just like how the Wuthering Heights goes out in the valley. England, not in India. That's a clever answer. Not in India. I would like to know, why is it not in India? Paul may as well be a civil engineer working at the site. Very good. Manufacturing company. Industrial London. Why are you people all thinking about the Europeans? Why don't you think about Americans? Western countries, even clever, right? And why not India? That's the question. Can somebody please tell me why not India? I accept England, America, Germany, whichever, Europe or Australia or America, fine. But why do you think that this doesn't happen in India? Now you see, it has moved beyond what we call as author and you. It moved beyond that and it went to on my own kind of a strategy. Alice and Paul are not common Indian names. I take it with a pinch of salt, but the culture, yes, we have a culture of washing feet before entering the house. Okay, that is very culture specific. He use of safety robe like overall not used in India, right? There is a point. Cultural connotations, I would be glad if you could. Indians are not fussy about, oh my God, that's a stark attack. The names are not very commonly found in India, really. Garbage bin culture, okay. What else? You're missing something very important. I'm just moving it to the passage. Costumes, vocabulary. Yes, Dr. Agalya is somewhere coming close. Porch. Yes, in a working class, family members do not, okay, make themselves presentable. Oh, that's, I'm not sure about that. That's a very political statement. Dr. Agalya has put it as porch. Can you think about it? Little bit of mud is acceptable, or there is nothing specific about Alice alone in washing. Right. Okay, very interesting. Description of clothes, the structure of the house. Could you think about the structure of the house? On his way in the house, he dropped the garbage bag off the washing machine and went straight up the stairs to the shower as he was instructed. You have a lot of clues there, okay, to tell you that if this is a farmer, so we have started it from the assumption that it's a, yes, washing machine. If this is a farmer, then the clothing and the kind of house, the names, all these things may not match with the Indian cultural bit is what you have generated. But then if he is a civil engineer, the story is something a little different. But then civil engineer coming with muddy boots again, we have to think about it. It might have happened in India as well. Yes, it's possible. Go to the shower or bathe. Okay. So there are so many possibilities. What I was intending at by asking this question was not to get a definite answer to this particular question that I asked. In poor families in India may not have a house with stairs, porch. Yes. So there we are actually, economic status is explicit. Yes. We are all assuming that Paul has a job which is maybe of a construction worker or maybe of a farmer, something like that. Okay. And then in our head itself, we have that economic category divided, many of us. Okay. Yeah, very interesting kind of responses are coming up. Let me just focus on this and finish it off. The purpose of asking this question was to see how much you can, how many questions you can have and what kind of conversations that conversations you can have based on such a simple passage by asking the right type of questions. And if you just ask, where did Paul take off his muddy boots? Of course, that question should be there because we have a heterogeneous classroom where the proficiency levels and the abilities of the students are totally different. So there should be some kind of distribution where the lower order questions are also asked so that, below average or whatever we term them as, those students can also attempt and then get some kind of confidence. True. But then our questions cannot be all in the text kind of questions. We have to move to the next two levels, where is on my own and then in my head and then in my head on my own and in my head author and me. Right. So it's actually all of us have a homogeneous idea about India. True. So we have a lot of discussions based on this. So in my BTech class, when I give this passage and when I ask them to come up with questions, the kind of discussions that we have for the next 1 hour is brilliant. Because just like somebody said, all of us have a homogeneous idea about India. The students are brilliant in putting their ideas in. They have so many different strands of thinking, and all of them contribute towards a kind of great synthesis in our classroom, great synthesis of ideas in our classroom. And all of them make sense of this particular passage. And it's not just making sense of this particular passage that they do, but they go beyond the text. So growing beyond the text is very important as well. So these types of questions can actually make the students understand or comprehend the text well, and then it assists them to go beyond the text and then have further kind of discussions or elaborations or deliberations on that. This is what I wanted to tell you about QAR. Yeah, I have a few more minutes, so let me just come to the next one. So questioning the author and elaborative interrogation. Questioning the author, it goes with learners in conversation with the author and recasting the author's ideas in clearer and simple language. So it's more like authorial intention, identifying the author's intentions. Okay. So what is the author trying to tell you? You can give a passage and ask them, what is the author trying to tell you? And why is the author telling you that? There comes the intention bit. These types of questions will ask, once you ask them, the students eventually will be able to ask those questions to themselves when they have something to read about. As I told you, I asked my research scholars to read the passage, read the article, and then ask, why is this the best method? Why can't there be some other method? So challenge the author or question the author, recasting the author's own ideas in clearer and simple kind of language. So this includes a bit of writing. How could the author have said the ideas to make them easier to understand? Is it the best way to say what he or she has said? What would you say instead? So if you have to voice the same kind of opinion, how would you rephrase it? So a lot of vocabulary exercises, a lot of grammatical constructions are all possible with questioning the author kind of activity. So this is another strategy. Questioning the author is another strategy to make the comprehension easy, and also at the same time it can actually help the students to enhance their other skills in relation to the passage. Elaborative interrogation. This is through asking questions, the learners actually link information together into a network of relationship, improving both understanding and memory for the text information. So a lot of elaborative kind of questioning will be there. Okay, why is it so? And what is the best way to look at it? There are so many why and how questions being asked. Another way of doing it in our classroom is you just browse YouTube or you just browse the internet about short detective bits. I remember when I was a child, we had a weekly coming home, a literary magazine, and then in that there is a short passage, a short story, which is really like a very short story, running up to 75 words or maximum 100 words, not more than that. Very short story, very, very short story indeed. And in that, there will be a crime scene depicted. Okay, all the linguistic clues will be there. And at the end of it, the reader has to find who is the culprit. So the clues will be there. This is an excellent kind of text to provoke thinking in our classrooms. And I use that a lot. And sometimes the pictures are also very good. But only thing is that the teacher has to take it with a pinch of salt, which means when we take that text, we have to really think through the logics. Are there any logics? When you go for a YouTube video, you can understand that there are so many comments coming up, challenging the kind of logic that is there in the story. So we can adopt something like very logically, something that is sound, logically sound, and then use it in our classroom. It can be even in pictorial format. It can be just like the comic strip. where there is a case being presented, who killed the maths teacher, or something like that. So if you give a text like that, then they can read the pictures, or they can read through the words and then identify quite a lot of gaps, and then think through it and generate answers. So that is another kind of interrogation that I wanted to make it in this context. Now, this is the last bit that I would like to discuss with you. I think I am on time. Yes, Paris. I told you this is not our France, Paris. The strategy, the speaking strategy, which is combining 5 essential self-monitoring comprehension strategies. This needs practice initially. The teacher has to be involved with the students to give them practice, and it works amazingly well in classrooms. With higher level students too, it works really well. So Paris is the acronym for predict, ask questions, retell, infer, and summarize. So here I'm trying to establish a connection between how a reading comprehension task can be converted into a speaking activity too. Right. How you need to, when you read something, or when the students read something, they have to predict something from there. Let us take Alice and Paul passage, or maybe let's think about, I wanted to show you that as well, but then the time constraints, I didn't want to bring in that passage where this detective story or a picture of this detective sequence is being displayed. You think through it, you will predict, you will have a lot of predictions. What am I going to read? Okay, and ask questions based on that, and then retell. You need to retell what is that you have read. You need to retell that, and then infer certain things. So for inferences, you need to have all these questions that we have already said. And if you have all those questions, if anybody has been an IELTS trainer or a candidate who has taken IELTS examinations, you know that the part 2 of IELTS test will have a cue card. And the cue card will have a topic. Okay, talk about a favorite book of yours. And then you will have to talk about which is the book, who authored it, and why are you interested in that. There'll be some leading questions at different levels. So that these questions are not for you to answer as such, but these questions are actually, these questions are actually for you to think through it and give a pattern or structure to your narration or your talk, so that it has something called coherence. So it sticks together. It adheres together. So for that, the questions are given in IELTS Part 2 examination of speaking. Similarly, we can use all these things in our classes. So for inferences, they have to generate all these questions. And it shouldn't be just the factual questions or just the inferential question. It has to be an amazing mix of all these questions. Okay, and it works absolutely good in our classes. Then visual clues, it can be a picture, or it can be even something like, certain words are bolded, certain words are in italics. So you know that there is something particular about it. Okay, so when you go through the bibliography, if you see something in italics, you know that it's a book or it's the name of a journal. How do you know that? You have the prior knowledge, and then you can easily identify that with your eyes. Similarly, when you have a text and there are certain things which are bolded or something that is underlined, you understand that this is important. So in that case, it will be, helping you to visually get some kind of an idea about it, and then go about it. Retell it, ask inferential questions to find answers in groups. You can promote kind of group activities. Okay, breakout rooms can be used in online context. I even ask the students to form groups into, WhatsApp groups and all, and then discuss this. It works really well. And then finally, they have to write a summary, or they have to verbally send a summary to the teacher, or just voice their opinions in the class about the text. So there we link. We are testing, the teachers are testing, or the teachers are actually accessing rather than assessing. I would like to say that we are accessing the comprehension of the students through their speaking. So we can give slight modifications or suggestions to their speaking skills as well. Like wherever they go wrong, we can correct it if we want, immediately or later. As I said, we have to record all the students' progresses, right? So this is how we can actually make speaking as a modality, because writing is always a modality for reading. When we test it at the end of the semester or throughout the year, we use writing as a modality for testing reading comprehension. What I'm trying to say is that speaking can also be a modality for testing reading comprehension, and it's absolutely lovely to have such activity in the classroom, because it promotes a lot of motivation and enthusiasm among the students, and it goes to different strands like discussions, debates, and different skills in context. So that is what I would like to tell you. I have so far discussed a few strategies. The QAR relationship, you can see that it's quite similar to the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy and the revised version of it. And then I have also discussed how this Paris could be used in our classes. I would have loved to talk to you more about this, but within the time allotted to me, let me just rest my case here, and I am happy to take questions. Thank you very much indeed for your active participation. And I love the chat box, and I would really love if I can get a screenshot or maybe a selection of all these chat here, because there were so many good questions. If the moderator or the organizers can help me to get the chat box, I'll be really happy. I'll try to complete.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Definitely, we will try to send you the. We will send you the recording.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Shall we move on to the Q&A session?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the first question to you is by Dr. Ramani. Would you say that? Just a second. Would you say that in the book Think and Search could be a type of open book exam on literary texts?
Okay, open book. Sorry, I can, in the book Think could be a type of open book exams on literary text. Yes, sir, it could be, because I remember writing my first examination, the open book examination, thinking that it's going to be pretty easy, and I could not find any answers. Not just me, the entire batch could not find any answers, because we just took it so much like, yeah, it's there. But well, the answer is right there. There are two things that happened. We didn't go through the book prior to that. We should have gone through the book earlier. But the other thing is that we never had thought about it. So the student has to have some background knowledge to generate that think and find kind of answers. So it's very important that it happens when we give open book examinations. We go for this on our own and in conversation with the author kind of analysis when we go for open book examinations.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. And the next question is to you by Divya Rai. What is the role of teachers while discussing and checking the answers, especially at the junior level?
What is the role of teacher
while discussing and checking the answers, especially at the junior level?
Okay, don't you think that teachers have to be really empathetic about it when they have to correct it? They have to be more empathetic towards the mistakes that the students are probably making, and the teacher has to handhold there, but not like just shouting at them. This is pretty clear kind of statement. I remember one of my teachers in Pondicherry University. He has given us something like very simple kind of a task. Okay, I was doing my MA literature there. And then most of us will forget our first language. I didn't, but most of us will forget our first language by the time we go through all this English medium instruction and reach there. I mean the alphabets, okay? And then he asked us to write the alphabet. So I, being a Malayalam speaker, I had to write in Malayalam. Others were writing in Tamil, some in Bangla and all. And finally, when I submitted, I found that one was actually a mistake. And then I couldn't believe that I made that mistake. It was so known to me, okay? And I went and told him that, sir, this is like, I can't just take it because I am very good in Malayalam. And then I don't make this mistake. I don't know how that happened. He asked me, Karthika, do you know that? Do you know the letter? Do you know how to write it? I said, of course I do. I know. Then write it here. And he gave me mark for that. So I was not getting 19 out of 20, but I got 20 out of 20. Isn't that wonderful? When we know that the student actually knows, and that was just a mistake that happened occasionally, or just happened like that, then the teacher has to be actually a little more sensitive towards the mistakes that the students are making. And I'm sure that all of us are very empathetic towards the need of students, and we can help them, suggest them further. Okay, so we identify that the student has problems in identifying the subject verb agreement. We can give more examples. So I always believe in giving examples. There are so very few people who can actually give good examples. So through examples we can teach them. And the error correction can be something like he go to the market. What? He go to the market. Oh, he goes to the market. He go to the market. So he goes to the market. Yes, he goes to the market. So you are just repeating it so that the student identifies that, okay, there is something that I say, something is wrong, and then I have to just make it correct. So like that it goes. So when you, even if it is at a lower level, even if it is at primary level, you have to be very empathetic with your students when they make mistakes, and handhold them. And this is how you do that. Give examples, give elaborations, give anecdotes, and give this kind of error corrections, which is not hurting their morale. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question to you is by Mr. Vamsi Krishna. What are some good strategies to develop pre-readers' comprehension skills?
What are the some good
good
strategies?
Strategies to develop pre-readers' comprehension skills.
You have to read, right? You have to read, and then develop the strategies. And there is, to be very frank, I'll tell you something. You can't just have a set of strategies and say that this works well, so you learn it. Whatever I have given you, these things, I always told you that this worked well in my classroom, and in most of the context it really works well. That's what I can say. There is no definite kind of answer that, okay, this is going to work, and then you have to teach them this. I'm not for this strategy based kind of instruction. I'm telling you that we learn and then we evolve. Okay, so we have to find out, we have to read and then suggest something. We can tell them that, okay, when you have something like this, just look at the keywords and then come back to the text and find out where these words are. Then see if it makes meaning. And this is how you do skimming, and this is how you do scanning. Don't give them don't get them bombarded with all those big words. Just say that this is how you do it. Explain it in simple terms so that they will understand. Okay, and later you can say that, okay, now great, what you're doing is called prediction, or what you're doing is called elimination. What you're doing now is called scanning or skimming. Don't teach them that, okay, skimming is going through the text for whatever. Don't do that. Just give them the cream, give them the meaning, so that they are able to do that. And once they do that, if you think they should know that, then give them the strategy. Just let them know, let them go through those strategies is what I say. So prediction, identifying keywords, inferring things, asking questions, all these are strategies for us to help them to read and then comprehend. So there is pre-readers comprehension. They have to read and then go through these strategies, experience them with the help of or the scaffolding from a better reader, and then develop their own strategies. So initially we can think about skimming, scanning, predicting, guessing, all those things we can think about. But eventually more and more strategies will evolve.
And here is your final question, ma'am, by Mr. Prakash. Do you think that there should be more open-ended questions, thought-provoking questions in board exams?
I'm with you for that, actually. Yes, there should be more questions towards that. But as I told you, we need to always think about the heterogeneous group of learners whom we have. Okay, so there shouldn't be all questions higher level ones, because there will be students who don't have that kind of linguistic capital to get easily adapted into that, or cognitive capital to be involved in that kind of higher order thinking skills. So there should be a good mix of all these steps, all these levels of questions in our examinations, is what I understand. And of course there should be higher order kind of questions, because otherwise again there won't be equality. See, if we set all the questions at a lower level, understanding and comprehending kind of levels, then students who are at the creating level, or who are really good in higher order thinking skills, will have a cakewalk. They don't have to worry about that. It's so easy for them, and then they will score well. So again, there is a disparity. Therefore, we have to ensure that there are a mixture of these questions, and definitely there has to be higher order thinking skills, which is at the level of analyzing, evaluating, and sometimes even creating. I noticed somebody has written something like role play when I showed the Paul and Alice passage. So absolutely, that is another way of creating a kind of that's another strategy actually, indeed, to turn this reading into something like speaking.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions, and I would really appreciate. I couldn't scroll down through all the comments that were coming up and questions, but in case, if time permits, I'll just send you my responses to them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your scintillating presentation. You suggested as a wide knowledge on various questioning strategies for reading comprehension, such as 6 Socratic question, Bloom's taxonomy and critical reading, question-answer relationship strategy, questioning the author and elaborative interrogation, and PARIS, speaking as modality. We also thank you for making the session interactive by in my head question activity. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So may I leave now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy learning to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.